Well, hey there, how you doing? Dave Fennoy here. Another Wednesday, another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. And this Black History Month, and because it's such a short month, I do believe this is the last Wednesday in February in Black History Month. So we're gonna do some things Black History, but some other business to get to first. Reminder coming up later on next month, at the end of next month, VO Atlanta. And you may know already that this is going to be the last VO Atlanta, at least the last one with Gerald Griffith at the helm. Someone may want to take it over, but man, I can't imagine anyone doing it any better than he's been doing it these last 8 or 9 years. I'm going to be there. I'll be on several panels, and I'll be teaching some workshops and X sessions on voice acting for video games. And I'm telling you, if you've never been to a VO conference, you want to go to this one. If you've been before, you know, and it might be worth it just to go for this last one. The best thing about the VO conference is, of course, the information you get and the people you meet. And this is one of the very best ones that you can go to. So, VO Atlanta. Yeah, we're talking Black history tonight. And just because we're talking Black history doesn't mean that I only want to interact with Black people, or that it's not for you if you're not Black. Or that if you are Black, you completely understand and know all the Black history. A lot of this history has been kept from us. You, me, and everybody else. I'm a great believer in not just knowing Black history, but the history of all the various cultures of people who populate this country. Out of many, one, that actually is the motto of the United States. We've never quite lived up to it. We keep fighting to be better at it and live up to it every day. And I, for one, am one of those people committed to it. So not only do we need to know Black history, but Asian history and South American history and Latin history and African history. Well, I guess I could roll that into Black history, as well as the Eurocentric history that we're taught now. And we don't need to leave things out that may make us uncomfortable, or that our ancestors may have done that we're not particularly proud of. You go back in anybody's family, you're going to find a little dirt here and there. No family, no group of people, no culture has done everything well. Well, to start, I want to talk a little bit about my Black history as a voiceover actor. And first of all, some of the people who were inspirations to me when I was deciding to and beginning my voiceover career. So with that, this. Whoops. Oh. And where did it go? I just had it a little bit ago and the video disappeared. Oh, I hate when these things happen. But let's see. I can fix that, can't I? I'll just throw up a new scene. And we want to find a video, choose file, and I do, there it is. So, who inspired me in my voiceover career? Well, let's start with Adolph Caesar, who was a New York stage actor, director, dancer, and choreographer, best known for his work in a film, A Soldier Story, which earned him Academy Award and Golden Globe nominations and an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Actor in a Motion Picture. But he also voiced many commercials and movie trailers. And then there's Greg Morse, best known for his role as Barney Collier in the 60s TV series Mission Impossible, but was also heard on numerous national commercials and narrations. Perhaps my biggest influence was Percy Rodriguez, a Canadian actor who broke stereotypes on American TV in shows like Route 66, Star Trek, and as neurosurgeon Dr. Harry Miles in the soap opera Peyton Place. But I remember him most from his voiceover work in the 80s and 90s, voicing trailers for movies like Aliens, The Omen, and Dracula, and dozens of others. But what really inspired me was hearing him for years as the voice of Pacific Bell. And then, of course, there's James Earl Jones, who has been described as one of America's most distinguished and versatile actors for his performances in film, theater, and television. And he just happens to possess one of the best voices in the business. I mean, he's Darth Vader and the voice of CNN. In fact, my first LA agent told prospective clients that I was a young James Earl Jones. Wow. Well, I hope I shared with you some things, maybe some people you didn't know about, who are some of my heroes, some of the people that I tried to pattern my career after. And I'm going to say, please, my voice is shot today. I've had a bunch of games and just a bunch of work and teaching, and voice is a little raggedy. Please forgive me. It'll be all right tomorrow because I know how that works. Let me say hello to a few people. When I'm here by myself, I can do that. Let's see, Linda Baker tuning in. Hey, Linda, how are you? Todd Weekly, hello. Brian Wagner, hiya. And there she is, Gemini Life. Hello, everyone. Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit about me, but I want to hear from you. And if you, black, white, I don't care. We can talk about Black History Month and things therein. Some of the things that I went through when I started my career as a voice actor in 1990 in Los Angeles. I don't have like really terrible, horrible stories of things that happened to me, just kind of interesting things. I know for myself, when I first began, I would not put a picture of myself on any of my advertising. Why? Because I didn't want people to go, oh, he's a black guy, so clearly he can't do general market work. Because I wanted to be able to work across the board. I wanted to be an American voice, not just a black voice. Of course, that has changed. And for me, one of the reasons that it has changed is because the American voice has changed, because America has changed. In the 30 plus years since 1990 when I came to town, if an advertiser was looking for a general market voice, it meant white. It doesn't necessarily mean that anymore. It could be a black voice, an Asian voice, a Latin voice, a white voice, a male, a woman. When I started in this business, the number of women doing commercials, TV promos, narrations, was small. I believe in AFTRA at the time, it was only 11% of women were doing voiceover work that was after work. And my, how the tide has changed. Couple of interesting stories. I was doing promos for ABC for a number of years, and at one point, Muhammad Ali was having his 50th birthday celebration. And one of the producers there chose me to be the voice to do that work, and I did the voice, and it was airing for a few days. And one of the producers called me up a few days later, and he was very upset, and he says, Dave, listen, man, I'm sorry, I just got to tell you this. One of the suits at ABC, they heard your promo, they loved it, but then they asked who it was, and we mentioned this new guy, Dave Fennoy, and he's a black guy, and we love him, and blah, blah. And he went, whoa, wait. We can't have a black guy on that. And he asked the suit why, and I told him that, well, you know, even though it's Muhammad Ali and he's black, we don't want to, portray this as something only for black people. If we have a black voice on it, they're going to naturally assume that it's only for black people to watch, and we don't want to we want as big an audience as we can get. And I was a little bit devastated. The job went to a buddy of mine. I was glad for him. It's sad for me, but I thought about that. I said, so you're telling me I can't do this because even though he's black, you want to get a general market audience. Okay, great. Well, you've got some new black sitcoms coming out. You should let me do those. And now, don't get me wrong. This producer that called me was on my side. But he said, yeah, but see, those sitcoms, even though they're black casts, we're still looking for a general market audience, so we can't put you on those. And I said, well, then put me on some general market stuff. And he goes, well, we can't put you on the general market stuff because you're black. And I said to him, so basically what you're telling me is I can't work. He hadn't thought about it that far. Well, shortly after that, I got a lot of work for ABC for quite some time. And I'm telling you this story to give you an idea of how sometimes people think and don't realize what thought A takes you to thought B to thought C that may discriminate against somebody. I don't think that kind of thing would happen now, but it certainly happened then. One of the other things that used to happen to me, I'd be in a session and I'd get the, Dave, can you make it blacker? And although most of the time I kind of felt I knew what they meant, and for a long time I would, I'd go blacker, the way I thought is what they wanted. But it always kind of bothered me. And I finally said to producers, directors, when they would say that, I'd say, well, I don't know what you mean. And they'd look at me funny. And I didn't do this with rancor. I said, well, listen, would you ever ask a white actor to make it whiter? No. You'd say, this guy has this level of education, he's from this part of the world or this part of the country, he's New York, he's Southern, he's California, he's this age, this is what he does for a living. Black people are not a monolithic people. We don't all sound alike. And once again, wasn't doing it to be a pain in the butt. I really feel like I helped a few directors find out some things about themselves and grow. A lot of times the things that we do are racist, even though we don't mean to be racist. I think we've all done that at some point or another. I know I have. Much as I like to think of myself as a person who doesn't have racism in me, I think we've all been affected by the ether in America, by what's been on the news, by what's on television shows, by what people say, by what we don't know, which is why we need to know Black history. Think of the number of people who their whole idea of Black history is slavery to now, when Black history is thousands and thousands of years old. It was Black people who built the pyramids and great civilizations throughout the ages in Africa. And if you start looking archaeologically, we've been everywhere. So that's my Make It Blacker. Talked about the American voice. One of the things that's going on, let me see if somebody has something interesting they want to say to you. Let's see. Trey Mosley, sometimes they simply don't know any better, and that's across the board. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Americans, we need to be having these discussions, and not with anger at one another, but looking to understand one another and be able to share what we're really thinking and really feeling. And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt until they prove me wrong. And of course, I want the same. Let's see what Gemini Life. I still don't hear a lot of women doing promos for shows or movie trailers. Why is that? Do they still just want men for that area? You know what? There's a certain amount of truth to what you say there. You're not hearing nearly as many women on promos for network shows. When you get deeper into cable television, you will find more women doing promos on some of the specialty shows. If you're on HGTV, you'll hear more women doing things. If you're on Lifetime, you'll hear more women doing things, and several other stations. You're still not hearing women doing trailers, movie trailers for sure. But truth be told, you're not hearing that many people doing movie trailers at all. They have stopped using as many voices on movie trailers. I don't know if it's a trend that's going to last, but it is a trend that's going on right now. Oh, let me talk to my buddy, John Groves. What's going on, man? I love you too, man. Sometimes it's just nice to stop and say hello. Which, as a matter of fact, let me a few more people to say hello to here. Jeremy Adams, howdy, howdy. Theo Mezzacapo, how you doing? The lovely Nikki Mo, hi. And Hamidi, how are you? Hey, man, see, love to get the love. Oh, and from one of my stories, Trey again. Oh boy, been there, going blacker. So it still happens. I remember the reads that I would be asked to do. Say you were doing a Kentucky Fried Chicken or something like that, and just like, come on now, really, do we have to go? Who is it that you think you are talking to? Don't mean me. I mean the audience that you're trying to reach. One of the issues in voiceover now is inclusion. And I wanted to talk about this. I remember back, I was doing a cartoon, and I was one of the main characters on the cartoon. I think I was the only black guy on the cartoon. And one day we had a Latin guy come in to play a Latin character. And one of my co-actors, one of the cast members, a white guy, didn't like this guy's acting. He didn't like the Spanish guy, the Latin guy's acting. And after the guy had left, he said, I don't know why they hired him. I do a great Spanish accent. I could have done that. I remember it now, and this is probably 25 years later. I remember that conversation now because that stung. That's the kind of attitude that we're trying to get away from. And I'm not giving you the name of the guy. He's not a bad guy. The guy who said that, he's not a bad guy. But he had a thought that really went in the direction of racism, or the idea that I can do anything. We're talking about inclusion a lot, and it really started, I think, after the murder of George Floyd, and people were marching and looking at things. We were in the midst of the pandemic, and everybody was home. One of the things we noticed at that time, as we became just more aware of police brutality against black people, which, ask anybody black, yeah, we know. You might not know because you don't get treated like that. But you started to see a number of white actors who I think have gotten a little pressure, starting to back away from jobs that they had playing minority characters. I'm not going to use any names. Some of you will know who this person is, and once again, not a bad guy. But I was always annoyed that I didn't get the job of playing Cleveland in the Cleveland show because it's a black guy, and I'm from Cleveland. But the guy who got it, I don't think he's from Cleveland, but he's a white guy. Once again, bad guy? No. But why were we hiring white actors to play black people or Asian people or Latin people? More often than not, I don't think the casting directors are overtly racist. I don't think the actors that take those jobs and audition for those jobs are overtly racist. They probably have some black friends or Asian friends or Latin friends. But they're not looking at what it is that they are doing exactly. The problem is not that, oh, well, I do a great black voice, I do a great Latin voice, I do a great Asian voice. But if you're not one of those people, you shouldn't. Why? Because we want to include everybody. We have lived in a world where John Wayne played Genghis Khan. How ridiculous. And that hasn't gone away or hasn't started to go away until recently. We still see a number of movies that Asian setting, white actors playing them. Oh, let's just change the characters from this to that. It wasn't until, we had blaxploitation films, but it wasn't until Black Panther that the movie industry realized, hey, we can have a movie with all black people and it be a hit, because the movie broke records. We have heard as black people over and over and over, those things that you do, that entertainment that you produce. Well, it's only for you guys. A white audience isn't going to like it, despite the fact of a Michael Jackson, a Prince, R&B, rap music, all the things that America loves about us. They love what we produce, don't necessarily love us. And I have heard the arguments, like my friend from years ago who just, well, I do a great Spanish accent and I'm a better actor than the Spanish guy that did it. First of all, I disagreed with him that he was a better actor, but there is a reason. And I was reading an article the other day written by a friend of mine, somebody that I've worked with who's directed me in some things, Amanda Rose Smith. Some of you may know her from Facebook. White girl, but she gets it. I'm going to read what she wrote, and I haven't told her that I'm doing this. We're talking about representative casting. Representative casting is the future. That's really not a debate anymore. All the high-profile clients and agencies have been moving that way for several years at this point. It shouldn't be news to anyone who does not work professionally. And if you're a white person consistently voicing people of color characters, you're not only doing harm to your people of color colleagues, but you're also doing harm to your own career. It's not a good look. It's bad PR. So if the ethical implications don't convince you, that should. 2, no one cares how accurate your voices for other races are. That's not and never has been the point. It's about giving people who are best for those roles, which will never be you as a white person, the chance to tell their own stories. Maybe someday in the far future, when people do truly all have the same amount of opportunity, that won't be needed. Right now, it is. To build on that last one, white people, please stop bringing up other ethnicities, Italian, Aussie, Irish, whatever, and treating them as if they're the same representation-wise as being a person of color. They're not. White people don't experience marginalization for being white, and they don't lose out on opportunities because of their varying white ethnicities in our society. Just stop. You don't have to try and find some equivalent experience in your life in order to be empathetic about this issue. It's okay to just accept that you don't know what this is like and listen to those instead who do. And 4, if you're going to be saying things like, everyone is offended these days, or actively ignore industry trends, you're again endangering your career and the careers of anyone who makes the mistake of taking your opinions and advice as gospel. No one can force you to keep up with the times. But it's particularly bad form if you're someone who teaches or is similar or is seen as a pillar of the industry if you aren't keeping current. This isn't a career where people can just learn the work and proceed to not change their thinking for the next 20 years. Our field is fast-paced, mercurial, a mercurial one that centers on human emotions and communication. Relentless self-investigation, as well as continual evaluation of societal norms, is key for success. It's okay to be unsure. It's okay to be uncomfortable. And the more you sit in those feelings, the more familiar and easy to manage they get. I read that a couple weeks ago in a forum on the Gardner Collective. And it just struck me. And as I was thinking about having this conversation, most of it, this is just off the top of my head, but she was so precise and succinct, I thought, I need to read this. People need to hear this just as it is. Let me start and I'd like to hear your thoughts. What have you gone through? What breakthroughs are you having in your mind and heart about these things? Let's see. Gemini life, exactly. It's like doing blackface or having a white person playing a character that should be for another race. Glad things have changed. Well, I'm not sure they have completely changed, but they are changing. Let's see. Short one. Todd Wigley, words matter. I expected more comments from you all. Well written on this timely topic. Thanks for sharing. I wish I could take credit for it once again. That's Amanda Rose Smith, who is a voice actress. She's also a director. She's directed me in a number of things. So come on, let's chop it up here. What do you have to say? What do you think about the idea of inclusion? Why do you think Black history is important? And frankly, I wish we didn't have to have Black History Month. I wish we didn't have to focus on it like that, but we do. Because we nor you, if talking to my white friends or non-black friends, we nor you have learned our history. And what does that do? For us, if we don't know the greatness of ancestors, the history of who we were, what our greatness was, what we have contributed to the world over the centuries, it leaves an empty place for you in your mind as who you are, when the only history that you are allowed to see is that you were a slave. Or as we would say these days, you have been enslaved or had been enslaved. We don't even, up until recently, look at the history of great Black Americans. You know Martin Luther King. You know Malcolm X. But there's so many inventors, doctors, soldiers, so many areas that we just don't know. But the more we know, the more we build on not only you, but us, understanding, oh, Black people are as wonderful as anybody else. They have as many accomplishments as anybody else. They're as smart as anybody else. Let's see, got something here from Trey. Someone made a tweet asking for inclusion and diversity for voice acting and having more creatives that are BIPOC on Twitter, and they were called a racist, put on a list of racists, and then was trolled on it. Why are some people of color so afraid of us? Why are some no people of color afraid of us? Just not in VO either. Well, we're talking the history of America. Why was our history erased in general? You go to Egypt and you look at the statues, and for some reason, the noses are gone on most of them. There was an effort by Europeans in Africa who just did not want anyone to know the people who built this civilization were Black, let's blow the noses off, because that lets people know that they were black. To justify enslaving people, you have to give up a little bit of your humanity. And it's probably a little easier to do if you can come up with a theory that the people that you are brutalizing and enslaving are not actually really people. They're actually not as good as you. They're less human than you. They're not as intelligent as you. And you can come up with whatever reason, religion or otherwise, that, well, this happened, these people are this way because of something somebody did in the past, and it's really not my fault. This is how God wanted it, so this is the way it is. People don't, it's interesting to me that so many books about the history of Africa begin with the arrival of Europeans in Africa. We know about the Holocaust of Jews during World War II, the 6 million that were died. What we don't know about is the Holocaust of Africa. We don't know about Leopold I forget the country, but King Leopold, who owned the Congo, one man, and over the course of his reign killed 10 million people, men, women, and children. And the same thing was going on in other colonies of Africa by Europeans. We don't know those stories. And again, we don't know stories of the greatness of Africa, that we had a Mansu Musa, a Mali Empire. Mansu Musa was perhaps the richest man in the world ever. It's interesting to me that I collect African art. It's interesting to me that we're looking at countries, European countries now returning art to Africa. Thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of art are going to be returned from this place where they said there was no culture. Well, then why were you so interested in having the art there? I think Germany is the first country to send back some Benin bronzes that have just started to arrive in Nigeria now. Good. We can be better. Let's see. Let me hear from what does Todd Weekly have to say. Recently had a union audition come my way that I passed on because they wanted a minority accent. Could have been my first union VO gig, but it wasn't right for me to take that opportunity. I appreciate you, Todd, for not. And sometimes you can feel like, well, I need this opportunity. I need this work. I know how, especially when you're beginning and you're not getting a lot of work, that every audition seems like it should be for you. But they're not all for you. Their accents I don't do anymore. Why? Because I know when I learned that accent, it was because I thought they were funny for some reason. I was watching a couple of Indian Pakistani actors talk about they hate Apu and The Simpsons because of that accent and what it says about them. Let's see, got Theo Mezzacapo popping in. Exactly, Dave. When more people know real history, untold stories are more understanding, and more understanding can spread. And the point is, when we talk about learning Black history for non-Blacks and for Blacks, learning Latin history for non-Latins and Latins, Asian history, so forth and so on, it's because we need to know what other people have done. We need to have a true idea of who people are and where they come from, so we can have an understanding, so we can learn some things. we always think of America as the greatest country in the world. And all too often, we're way behind. Educationally, we're way behind. In terms of workers' rights, we're way behind. In terms of the disparity between the rich and poor, we're way behind. In so many ways, we are not the greatest country in the world, but we sure as hell could be. Let's see. Gemini life, bothers me that the Holocaust is talked about in America as if it happened here. It took place in Germany, but now parents argue against discussing slavery because it makes some non-people of color uncomfortable. It's sad that we can't discuss slavery as openly as the Holocaust is discussed. You know what? I hear you. I don't think that we should stop talking about the Holocaust. I think Jewish people who remind the world of it and remind us of it are doing the exactly right thing, just as we should remind people of the African Holocaust. Now, one of the reasons it hasn't been brought up so much is because we didn't know. It wasn't documented until recently. World War II and that Holocaust is fairly recent. We're going back to 1935 to about 1945. When we talk about the Holocaust in Africa, we're going back to the 1800s, the mid-1800s into the late 1800s. And we weren't presenting this. One, we didn't know, and we weren't presenting it and talking about it. It needs to be talked about. Not at the expense of hearing about the Jewish Holocaust, but we need to be talking about it. We need to let the world know these things happened. And it's not to shame people. It's not to make you feel bad about your race. Once again, I don't care who you are, what color you are, where you came from. You go back in history, you're going to find some heroes and you're going to find some zeros. You're going to find some really despicable people and some really wonderful people. That is the nature of humanity. But we do need to know, what did we build? What did we create? When we start talking about ancient Greece became ancient Greece because of ancient Egypt. The first doctors, ancient Egypt. Mathematics, ancient Egypt. Architecture, ancient Egypt. But these things have been hidden on purpose so that we don't know and can feel the pride in that. So that we will only think of ourselves as, well, we're trying to get out of slavery. We've come out of slavery and we're trying to work our way up. We have been great and will be great again. I saw not be great, we are great. I saw a meme. If African history were 1,000 days, slavery would be one day. Recent day, but one day. Thoughts. Anybody else? I'm just rambling on. Take a sip of my. One of the things I noticed as I will ramble a little more, seeing those auditions start to come through during the pandemic that said we are only going to accept African American, I would just say black actors for these roles of black people. We are only accepting Asian actors for these roles of Asian people. We are only accepting Latin actors for these roles of Latin people. It's a step forward. And let's see, Nikki Moe, what you got to say? I think a large part of America still sees black people as enslaved people and want blacks to stay oppressed. Our truth is hard for our history. Our truth is hard and our history is marvelous. I unfortunately can't completely agree with that, or can't completely disagree with that. I think for the most part, Americans don't want to be racist, don't think of themselves as racist. Once again, very often the racist thing somebody is doing, they don't realize the impacts of their thoughts, their words, their action, because they feel like everybody's life is like their life. There's a tendency not to believe us when we tell our story. There's a tendency to want to blame the victim. Some people will use the statistics on how many black men are in prison, how many black men are being arrested, as proof that it's black people committing more crimes, when the truth of the matter is, say, drug crimes, for instance, are done in about equal numbers between whites and blacks per capita, but they're not arresting middle-class white kids for the same thing that they're arresting black kids for. And if they do arrest them and find them guilty, they're not serving as much time. Think about the number of the young man who was a rapist. He was found guilty. He was only caught because a couple of people chased him down. He was caught, and the judge said, well, I don't want to ruin this kid's life, so I'm only going to give him a couple months, or maybe it was probation completely. That doesn't happen to us. Mike Smith, what do you think the auditions coming in now say? Caucasian or white actors only instead of just general American? That's an interesting question. Sometimes they are definitely asking for Caucasian actors. I have seen that. And sometimes that's okay, I think. Sometimes they're trying to get a white guy to play a white guy. Sometimes, and we're not just talking video games and cartoons, but that's more likely where you're going to find that. But when you say general American, looking at your picture, Mike Smith, there, I would say you're a general American. I would say I'm a general American. I know a lot of people from a lot of different races that are very much general American, although that's not what general American used to mean. But that's what it means now. Let's see, Jeremy Adams. I do often get auditions that say something along the lines of diverse and inclusive submission. Do you think that they are specifically looking for people of color for that role? I don't necessarily think that's the case. What I think is they are open to finding out what works for them. You know, people audition because they don't really know what they want. They may have some idea, but I can't tell you how many times I've auditioned for something that said we're looking for ABC, and when I heard it on the air, it was XYZ. Happens all the time. And I actually think this is a plus for advertising and for anybody in this business now, that they're not specifically looking for this white bread thing that they used to look for. They're looking for a voice that speaks to the audience they're trying to reach and has the feel that they think they want. I'll go back to some of the advice I give actors. Stop trying to figure out what they want and give them what they didn't know they wanted. And that usually is something that is very unique and you. And sometimes when I say unique, I don't mean so off the wall that it's just different than everybody else. But the fact that you are you're different than everybody else. It's not some big, wild, strange difference. It's the uniqueness of you. I like the fact that I am seeing auditions now. Men, women, black, white, Latin, Asian. We're just looking for the voice that's right for this thing. Let's see. Myron, Dave, are there agencies that specialize in the black voice and aren't afraid to ask for it? There are some, and I'm going to put it this way. There are advertising agencies that are owned and run by black people. just as there are advertising agencies that are owned and run by Asian people, Latin people, white people, and hopefully lots of agencies that whoever is running them, there's a multi-ethnic, diverse group of people working there and trying to sell products, get their message across, create their video games or their cartoons. So yeah, I do think it's a good thing that they're looking for all of us. Any other thoughts, questions? Come on now. Don't make me just keep talking. Well, it is 6:45. All right. Well, I will start to wrap it up. I hope we've all gotten something out of this. As a celebration of Black History Month, once again, I wish we didn't have to have Black History Month. It's a shame that we do, but we do. We do. Wait a minute. Jay Horace popping up. Great subject. I was honored to do a live voiceover reading this past Sunday for Black History Month at a predominantly white church on Bayard Rustin. He was a major architect in the March on Washington. Yes, and we don't know much about him because he was gay. They were afraid at the time to put him forward as a speaker because they thought he would not be accepted. Todd Week, what are your thoughts on white voice actors narrating, performing poetry by black authors like Langston Hughes? You know what? Poetry is poetry is poetry. Are you talking about somebody paying you to do this? I think poetry, go for it. Go for it. If for no other reason than it gives you an opportunity to hear that black voice, to hear what Langston Hughes had to say. I doubt seriously that you'd be hired to do black poetry that's going to be recorded and paid for and so forth. But by the same token, I think of the number of white allies that speak to their white counterparts about black folks and our place in America and the what we go through, because sometimes a white audience can't hear us. Sometimes they don't believe us. So it's often good to have a white ally that can talk to their counterparts. I saw a thing the other day. It says, white politicians, don't come to black churches and talk about how you're on our side, and go to white churches and tell them what they need to do. Just bring the right message. Just bring the right message. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Trey says, scroll up. He has a question there. Oh, boy, it's a long one here, too. A trendy term that is going around by folks of non-color to show solidarity with people of color, ally. A lot of people want to claim the term, but it is just something in vogue to say. I say to you, Dave, what makes a good ally to you and to your listeners out there? What makes you, meaning them, a good ally? That is a very good question. What does make a good ally? And people often claim a term that they don't deserve. I think a good ally is probably one who's not trying to take over and take charge of your movement. For one thing, often that has been the case, that you'll have a white ally, and in their not realizing how racist they actually are, because we've all been poisoned with this thing, they have a feeling they need to step in and take over. No, you don't. If you're in a meeting about black issues and you're a white person, listen. listen and learn. Go to your white counterparts and tell them what you've learned. That's being a an ally. That's being an ally. Good point there, Trey. That said, I want our white allies there and speaking up. I don't want to make you uncomfortable, although I do want to tell you the truth. And sometimes the truth is going to be a little painful. Let's see. Oh, it's for a personal project to animate, and this poem, Harlem, really resonated with me. You're doing this on your own, do your thing. Alton Hoover, Dave, thank you for giving voice to these issues in a fair and balanced fashion. You are welcome, Alton. Jay, once again. Yes, I have seen more diversity in casting, much more opportunity I've seen. When I started in the business for doing on-camera commercials, they would only air in specific demographic markets. Now they air more on prime time, as well as having more diversity in interracial couples. I like what I'm seeing. I've had more opportunities in voiceover than ever before. It's interesting. One of the best things about, well, you mentioned that the number of interracial couples that we're seeing, or interracial groups of friends that we're seeing that are just showing up in commercials. We have a huge impact in the entertainment industry on what becomes acceptable. If we're only, I remember when I was a kid, you didn't see black people on TV. If you did, it was a story about some racial thing. And my mom and dad would be calling their friend, well, so-and-so's going to be on television. That's gone. Now, not only do we have black shows, say on a BET, that maybe not that many white people are watching, but we got shows that are either black or black heavy on general market networks that everybody's watching. We have shows with lots of mixed people. It used to be, we got a black show, it's got a black doctor, he's got to save the racist guy, who then realizes, oh gosh, maybe they're not that stupid after all. Now it doesn't matter. Oh, we've got a doctor, and it has nothing to do with race. So this doctor could be black, white, Asian, male, female, whatever. That's the world that we want to see. And we're beginning to see it a lot, as was mentioned in commercials on a lot of television shows. I think it'd be strange now if you go back, and maybe you like the show, you're watching Friends. I know for me and all the black people I know, if you turned on Friends, you go, well, they're in New York? Where are all the minorities? Where are all the black people? How they afford an apartment like that on the salaries they've got? Those are things that we notice, for my white friends out there. We notice when we walk into a room and we're the only one. We notice when we go to a place of business and there aren't any black people working there. I am at the point now, if I'm hiring somebody to do some work on my house or something, a company that's going to do a big job, so how many black employees do you have? Now, one might think that is, pushing the envelope too far, or being, I don't know how you would call it racist. I'm interested in seeing all of us do well. I don't have any problem with Latin, Asian, white doing well, but I want to see all of us do well. I want to see opportunities for all of us. And I think that's the mindset that we all should be in. I'd like to know that my white friends, if they walk into a room and there are no Asians there, there's no Latins there, there's no black people there, that, well, wait a minute, how come? Not saying that every space you go into has to be, but you ought to wonder. You ought to wonder what's up. If we are truly, truly, truly going to be this melting pot of people in this country. We have to stop having, oh, well, that's a black neighborhood, that's a white neighborhood, that's an Armenian neighborhood, that's a Latin neighborhood. This didn't happen by accident. We couldn't live certain places. When my father got out of the military, he fought in World War II as a first lieutenant, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There was the GI Bill, but my parents couldn't take advantage of the GI Bill to buy a home because they couldn't live in any of the neighborhoods where the GI Bill was working. He was told, well, you can buy a piece of land. If you have the cash, you can, build a house on it, but we're not going to loan you the money. This happened to thousands upon thousands of U.S. soldiers coming back from World War II. They just didn't qualify. Why? Because they were black, despite the fact that that was the law that they did qualify. When you look at black neighborhoods in major cities that have been split right down the middle by freeways, that was done on purpose. Central Park in New York used to be a black neighborhood way back in the day. But because it was poor and black people that lived there, we made it Central Park. History that we don't know about. Tendencies that we have to stop having happen. When you know better, you do better. We all need to know black history. We all need to know history. We need to know the good and the bad of this country. We need to know the valiant things we've done and our crimes. And history is not there to make you comfortable. It's there for you to learn. And I will leave it at that and call it a night. I want to thank you for joining me and talking about black history and a little of my own personal black history in this business. Wait a minute. Oh, one more comment, I guess. On a lighter note, the Subaru commercial with the black family cracks me up, as I don't know any brothers that own a Subaru as a family car. Well, I can't think of any off the top, but I'm sure there's some black families that own a Subaru. With that, I am going to say good night. Thank you for joining me. And I hope I've said something valuable for you. Some of what I've said, it's given me an opportunity to lift a weight off of me. And in the meantime and in between time, I'll see you next week. And between now and then, book something. See ya.